ahead and call this school board meeting to order. If you please rise and lead us, help us do the flag salute with Lupe Ramirez. Thank you. Moving on to number 2, adoption of the agenda is submitted for possible action.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Laurel. Any discussion?
Don.
Oh, Don, sorry, thank you. I was looking at you and I had heard his voice. Could be a longer meeting than purposeful. Any discussion on the motion? Any public comment with the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to number 3, superintendent's report for information only. Mr. Stokes.
Madam President, members of the board, it's my pleasure to be with you this evening. And I'd like to begin this part of my report by recognizing Mrs. Susan Kima, our outgoing Associate Superintendent of Ed Services for the Carson City School District, a position that Sue has held for more than 12 years. And it's been my pleasure to serve with her, and hope you'll join with me in just giving her a little round of applause. As Mrs. Kima leaves, however, we have offered the position of Associate Superintendent to my colleague, Mrs. Tasha Fuson, who currently works as the principal at Carson High School. And I feel very fortunate to have Mrs. Fuson being promoted to this position. As you know, she has spent her last 5 years at Carson High School and has done an amazing job there. And there have been some tremendous gains that have occurred. You may remember that prior to coming to us in 2013, Mrs. Fuson was Washoe County and the state of Nevada's Principal of the Year. And she represented the state of Nevada on the national plane. And she is also currently our Administrator of the Year for Carson City School District. And I feel very fortunate that someone of her capacity and ability has come to join Dr. Delphin and Mr. Fueling and myself in this new role. So she's obviously no stranger to this body, and we look forward to working with her and seeing our school district continue to go forward. And so I'd like to leave a little time for Mrs. Fuson to say hello or to invite you to ask her a few questions if you have any of her.
Thank you, Superintendent Stokes, President Wilkie, and members of the board. I appreciate this opportunity. It seems strange that 5 years has gone by this quickly since I've been in our district, but I feel very fortunate to have spent the last 5 years as the principal of Carson High School. I'm very, very excited to be able to moving into my new role as the associate superintendent. I'm very excited that I've been able to work with Sue for the past 5 years, and she has been absolutely amazing in terms of helping me transition into her role and making sure that that transition happens smoothly and catching me up on everything. So it's just an ideal time, I think, for this to transition, for me to transition over. And I think Carson High School, although we always have work to do, I'm very proud of what we've accomplished in the last 5 years. So I also feel comfortable knowing that I'm leaving Carson High School in a place that whoever comes in and replaces me will be able to kind of pick right up and work with the amazing administrative team there and the amazing team of teachers and instructional leaders we have and continue that forward progress. So I just want to thank you all for the opportunity.
So I'll just say welcome. We look forward to working with you, and I know you're going to do a great job in that new position.
I'll ditto what Mike said, but I just want to thank you for all the efforts you've given us at Carson High School. You've done a great job at the high school, truly going to be some challenging shoes to fill. But the high school's in a great position. I mean, we're going to hear from a lot of the students here tonight, as we typically do in board meetings, but they're a small example of what, you've been in charge of for these 5 years, and we really appreciate everything you've done, from Jumpstart and AP classes to just all the curriculum and all the things that go on at the high school. So thank you very much.
And just to piggyback on that, I think the thing that I've been most impressed with is the way that you and Sam Santillo from Adult Ed and Jason Zona have worked together to make sure that every single kid in this has an opportunity to graduate. And it's been a pleasure to see that. I mean, I think our graduation rates are up because of that, and the way that you guys have followed through on some of these seniors that have kind of disappeared, and trying to fit them into either your curriculum or Jason's curriculum or Sam's. It's just amazing, and it's so neat to see that cooperation, and I'm looking forward to seeing that cooperation at the level that you're at now. I think it's very exciting, and we'll try to keep the board meetings to a minimum hours. At least me, I can't speak for Mike, but
I love a long meeting.
but we're glad to have you here. We appreciate it. We're looking for great things. Thank you so much.
And I just want to say, Mrs. Kima, thank you. So, you've had to take the lead on some difficult tasks, and I think you've gotten things prepared for your successor. And so thank you for your efforts in getting everything ready for Mrs. Fuson.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to miss you. But, we have committees you can be on too.
Tracy, I'd like to also say something.
Mrs. Fuson officially begins her role on July 1. And even though she's been spending a lot of time up at the district office already, that will be her official first date. So welcome, Mrs. Fuson.
And Lupe has something to add.
I also want to express my appreciation to both Sue Kima and our new Associate Superintendent, Tasha, for all the hard work that you've put into the Jumpstart program. I am especially thankful for everything you've done for our students. They have gone far, and we look forward to having more students benefit from that amazing program. So thank you both very much.
Ms. Fuson, next time the questions might be a little bit more difficult, though.
And this might be the last meeting you can sneak out early too.
Madam President, members of the board, we have also invited members of our Carson High School girls track team, who had an amazing year this year, to attend this meeting, and I'm hoping Coach Nelms made it. Mr. Nelms, Coach Nelms, if you please come forward and bring your student athletes with you, please.
Hello, thank you guys for the invite today. I appreciate it. So here is 7 of our 8 girls who competed this year at the 2019 Nevada State Track Championships. We're missing Ashley Britt. She's on a camping trip. I am beyond proud of the success that this team has had this season, especially coming off of last year. Where anytime you come into a program as a first year, there are gonna be hiccups and bumps. We had a great staff this year and a huge turnout in kids. I think we had 17 kids go to state this year. It's the most in 20 years in Carson's history, within 20-year span. And it's the first time that we've placed in state, I think, since the 70s. So it's a huge honor for them, and it shows that their hard work had paid off. So I'm extremely proud of the girls here behind me. Good job, girls. Yes, so here's Abby Perder.
So, Coach, why don't you give them the mic and they can introduce
that'd be
themselves
great.
and tell us what they're doing next?
I'm gonna go Abigail Perdera, like he said. I'm gonna go run at the University of San Francisco.
I'm Taryn Senior, and I'll be a senior next year at Carson High School, so I'll be doing track next year as well.
I'm Erica Vasa. I'm gonna be studying engineering up at Boise State University.
I'm Mercedes Taraya, and I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm Madeline Weekling, and I'll be a sophomore next year at Carson High, and I'll do track too.
I'm Catherine Opedal, and I will be continuing my education at WNC next year.
I'm Monica Wick, and I'm going to be a senior, so I'll be running track next year as well.
Thank you guys for coming. I know you guys are out of school. We really did want to recognize you because this achievement is huge. Like you said, we haven't had a state title, especially the girls, since 1970. We tried in the early 80s when I was there, and we came up short. So we're just so proud of you guys. And I'm so glad that you guys took the time out of your summer to come and be recognized. Any other comments from the group, Laurel?
I just want to congratulate Abby too, because 2 years back-to-back state champions in the 800 and the mile, just outstanding, well done. I don't think that's happened ever and don't you hold every record at Carson High too?
She holds every record in frosh soft and varsity and the 800 and the mile, and she also ran on our girls 4x4 team this year as well, which was about a second off the school record in that aspect as well.
Nicely done, girls, all of you too.
Well, congratulations to everyone, and for the one that is going to WNC, I look forward to seeing you there.
I just want to congratulate all of you. Running is something I enjoy doing. I've been doing it for years. I'm not as fast as all of you anymore, but I'm trying. But congratulations. I mean, track takes, like every sport, it takes a lot of dedication, not just individually, but as a team. You know, as you know, on these team events, you have to work together. And that's a skill that you'll carry through all through life. So congratulations to you and keep working hard.
Thank
Well,
you.
enjoy your summer.
Have a great summer.
Madam President, members of the board, that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Moving on to number 4, board reports. Laurel?
Just a thank you to all the parents that helped at Fritch for the field day, and also an update for NASB. We are having a training next Friday and Saturday in, it's actually not really a full training, but it's a executive committee and board of directors in Winnemucca. So it's a retreat. So we'll report on that when we come back.
I have no reports.
Nothing other than just to say Carson High School graduation, you know, we all attended it, and as usual, a great ceremony. It was fun to see 522 students receive their diplomas, and what I thought was record time too. I mean, I looked at my watch when it was over, and it was only like an hour and a half.
But it felt slower paced. That was nice.
Well, it was I thought it was a relaxed pace. It didn't feel like we were rushing through it, but it was really nice. So, and the tortillas were an added addition that I actually enjoyed. So, congratulations if anyone's listening to all the seniors who graduated.
Well, now I just have to say ditto for Pioneers graduation. It was pretty exciting to see some of those kids' stories, for them to come from where they came from and to walk across that stage was pretty heartwarming. And the staff there is just incredible. So a shout out to them too. And then a special thanks to Sheriff Furlong and his deputies and officers. They made all the graduations so much easier for people to get in and out and directing them. And it was really nice, and I appreciated their presence there, so I wanted to make sure that we thanked them. And then the only other announcement I have is I have an NIAA meeting next Tuesday in Reno, and it's the realignment. So if anybody has anything they want to bring up, let me know for that. I can send you the packet that shows how it's all going to show out, and it looks like we're going to try to get a 5A going. So I'll have a report for that next meeting. Moving on to association reports. Thank you. Number 6, public comment. Comments be made by the members of the public on any matters within the authority of this board. Please note that public comment can be taken on items marked for possible action before action is taken on such items, and members of the public are encouraged to comment on such items at a time that they are being considered. Although members of the board may respond with questions and discuss issues raised by the public comment, no action may be taken on such a matter until the matter is placed on an agenda for action at a meeting of the board. In making public comment, speakers are asked to come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and identify themselves for the record. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes and simply not repeat other comments made by others. For discussion only, any public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to number 7. Discussion and possible action to approve the charter school agreement renewal between Carson Montessori Charter School and Carson City School District for a 6-year term commencing July 1st, 2019 for possible actions. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Just from a historical perspective, back in April of 2004, the trustees of Carson City School Board approved the Carson Montessori Charter School's initial agreement. So it's been quite some time that we have enjoyed a good working relationship with Carson Montessori Charter School. Carson Montessori's charter school has been operating as a charter school then under the district's umbrella since that time. The current agreement between Carson Montessori and Carson City School District expires on June 30th, 2019. And as part of its bid to renew its charter with the school district, Carson Montessori has responded to a list of questions and details per my invitation. And also tonight, Jessica Daniels, who's the principal at Carson Montessori School, is here with some of her students and staff to make a presentation to the board. So this is an action item. At the end of the discussion, questions, interactions with the board will be asked to consider whether or not to renew the charter school for another period of time, up to 6 years. And with that introduction, I will turn the presenters table over to Mrs. Daniels and her students.
Just remember, students, you guys have to say your name for the record, okay? Thank you.
And students, before you start, if you just make sure the little light on your microphone is green. Just push it down and let go, and it should work, okay? Good luck.
My name is Devin Kellner. My name is Violet Foley.
My name is Tyler Varner.
And my name is Sadie Brown. As members of Carson Montessori School's student legislative team, serving this year during Nevada's 80th session, we are representing Carson Montessori Charter School, a public K-6 elementary school, where student voices are always heard. Violet Foley, and as a working group tackling relevant political issues, we are officially submitting the following charter renewal application.
Tyler Varner, Carson Montessori School, an educational entity that daily uncovers the wonders of learning, is applying to the Carson City School District, its sponsor, for a 6-year charter renewal.
Sadie Brown. As a Nevada charter that has provided a safe learning environment, which is wrapped in a rich, Common Core-aligned, real-world, hands-on Montessori curriculum, in which students are thriving academically, socially, and emotionally, while striving to reach their greatest potential, and as a financially solvent, political subdivision of the state of Nevada and a highly successful public school, we make this official request under NRS 386.527 of Charter School Law. I would just like to thank Ms. Kima for all that she has done for Carson Montessori School. What a joy it is to attend a school where students, staff, and family really care. CMCS is a school where we are all connected. Classes have philanthropies, kids adopt causes, and we all learn to share. Here are a few special examples because we want everyone to see why Carson Montessori is a very special place to be.
Devin Kellner, the real world is our classroom. Carson Montessori is an extraordinary learning environment. We all agree. As an alternative school with hands-on, purposeful lessons, it definitely is the place we kiddos want to be. We sing out loud, dance, and celebrate with courtesy and grace. As the educational gem of Northern Nevada, Carson Montessori is a hip, happening, happy place.
Violet Foley. Our curriculum is wrapped to include all of life's real adventures, and we have the opportunity to explore and discover every day.
Tyler Varner. We work with 3D printers. We build and fly our drones. We have a championship Lego team. We make financial investments. We create our own businesses, and we do random acts of kindness. That's just the Carson Montessori way.
Sadie Brown. This year, after extensive work, recognition finally came. Now the governor's official STEM designation is one of our claims to fame. Now we'll take you on a quick tour of our classes so you can see the extraordinary things that brought the governor's decision to be.
Here you go, Quentin. Tell them who you are.
My name is Quentin McMasters. I just graduated kindergarten at Carson Montessori. In kindergarten, we have culinary. I baked sizzling sausages.
Violet Foley. Oh, wrong page. What starts in kindergarten with sausages continues through upper elementary, where we transform a classroom into a complete themed bistro. We prepare and serve all of the food to teachers and students. The whole school united to support Miss Maya the Dragon on her journey to remission. By collecting pennies, we were able to raise over $2,000, making Carson Montessori a Gold Star school, and Miss Maya was named a national hero. First graders begin to refine presentation skills by speaking into microphones and teaching classmates about topics and celebrate their individual passions while shining as experts. We honor veterans at our annual poppy sale with student-made poppies. We all donate the funds and support local veterans.
My name is Hank Brown. Second graders have taught us to celebrate and respect who we are. We all have a unique heritage, and as individuals, we are each a star. We're bringing the world into our classroom. We are surrounded by science and hands-on learning. We learn the value of money, the importance of nature, and we know we're safe to make mistakes because mistakes are proof that you're trying. My name is Sawyer Ross. In third grade, we took our learning and caring on the road to the lodges, assisted living, and memory care unit. We made new friends and reading buddies. We all learned how to sew a memory quilt, and with fabric squares, we earn for making good choices. We all learn to read and write in cursive, which is a lost art. We create a valuable signature and learn to write checks and sign documents. With these skills, we can submit formal proposals to the principal. This year, we proposed a Carson Montessori's Got Talent show. It was a huge success.
In fourth grade, after doing extensive scientific research, the students wrote a grant to the Carson City Rotary to establish a hydroponic garden. As part of this project, we partnered with the River Wranglers, Sierra Nevada Journeys, Trout in the Classroom, UNR's Agriculture Department, and the Water Conservancy. Students even sampled our water in Carson City. To date, students have harvested over 800 pounds of fresh produce, which is donated to fish. This summer, through our partnership with the Lodge Memory Care, the residents will tend to the garden, harvest, and use the produce. When we want to learn something and can't go to it, we bring it into our classroom. From golf lessons to car repair.
Tyler Varner. In upper elementary, we have the opportunity to explore the world around us. Field trips are a key part of our curriculum. Carson Montessori has a full maker's lab with 3D printers we built. I even printed my own guitar. We have 3D pens, we make robots, rockets, and we build and fly drones. We even make ice cream with liquid nitrogen.
Violet Foley. This year, Carson Montessori became a part of the Enable project. We manufacture prosthetic hands for children around the world. Based on doctor specifications, this year we sent 51 hands, one from every student in upper elementary. Closer to home, we sponsored a Karma box which will be filled with items to help those in need. Sadie Brown. Carson Montessori has always had a student legislative team. We've worked on significant bills, many times at the request of legislators, that affect education, such as Nevada's civics law, Nevada's financial literacy standards, state-mandated testing, teacher licensure, and the ability for charter schools to bond. This year, we followed the legislative process from start to finish. We wrote a bill, partnered with Assemblywoman Sarah Peters. We lobbied it through the legislature. It passed unanimously, and it was signed into law on April 23rd, making neon Nevada's official state element. AB 182, making neon Nevada's state element, garnered support from all sides, unified the state, had no cost, and we learned so much. Many of us now want to be legislators when we grow up. Clearly, it should be very easy to see why Carson Montessori is the best place in the world to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before all the kids go back to their seats, if parents want to come take pictures of them sitting up there from the front, you could do that. Okay.
And hopefully we're going to get a little sample of that guitar. You're welcome. So the one little boy, who's walking back, who's in kindergarten? Just curious how those sausages turned out. Were they pretty good? Were they? Awesome.
Delicious.
Well, nice job.
Jessica Barlow Daniels, Executive Director, Principal of Carson Montessori. And what I would like to do is just briefly go through the punch points that were given to me. If you have questions, please ask them. You received a packet, but you may need more information. The first punch point was compliance with Nevada law, and in the packet was a letter from Stephanie Hogan pointing out that Carson Montessori is a charter school that is in 100% compliance. We recently met with the State Public Charter School Authority as an example of a charter school that is in full compliance so that we could share our best practices and techniques with them on how we were able to achieve this. Next, the term. We're asking for 6 years, and this one is kind of cute. Our charter expires on June 30th. The legislature just voted in that charters could be renewed for 10 years. It takes effect July 1st. By 1 minute, we missed that deadline. So we are requesting a 6-year term renewal. Darn it. Well, yes. At least this year, they didn't in the waning hours of the session. Usually the last 4 minutes before the gavel goes down is when the huge pieces of legislation come through. Charter school independence. I want to, at this time, absolutely salute Sue Kima and thank her. She has been our district liaison who, for the 12 years that I have been there, I have to work very closely with the Associate Superintendent of Curriculum. And Sue has been by my side all the way. She always has the answer. She is always available. And I so appreciate her support. She is going to be greatly missed. Tasha is a wonderful replacement. I just told her they couldn't have picked a better person. However, I have a deal for you. We have a couple openings on our board, so I'll be looking for you. Along the line with number 3, I feel that the second part of number 3 perhaps may need the most clarification. In that are 2 elements. Number 1, the plan of succession, and number 2, where we are physically going to be located because of the expiration of our special use permit. On the plan of succession, there are currently 4 candidates that are learning the process, working with Carson Montessori, 2 of whom I am directly mentoring. They have shown an interest. In the packet that I gave you, it lists their particulars, their qualifications, and also because this is a Montessori school, their experience with Montessori, because you need dual qualifications in this particular case. The second is on where we are going to be located. If you have any in-depth questions, the realtor that we have been working with for 12 years, we have been trying for 12 years to locate a new site. We come very close, and then there is always something in the process that brings it to a halt. One of the major things, of course, is zoning. To find a building big enough, they are in the industrial area. And so the zoning is not acceptable. In fact, it usually specifically excludes an e-occupancy, which is a school. The zoning changed right after Carson Montessori located to the Mouton Drive site. We do have in writing from the Planning Commission that we can occupy that building indefinitely, the main site. What has created the problems for us was the fact that the state mandated that we had to have a secure testing lab, which Mrs. Kima lived through that with us, in the middle of a school year. And there was a space available down below that I secured in order to be able to have a lab where we could administer the state mandated assessments. I realized that it worked, and so I went to the city immediately to obtain a special use permit. And that's where they have given us a temporary permit with an expiration date of July 21st. And so we continued diligently our search. As you saw in your packet, that our first choice was to partner with WNC. That deal was close to coming to fruition, but funding has made a huge difference for WNC. Everyone is faced with shortages. I know that's not news to you, and so that, while it is still on the table, had to be put on to hold because they could not meet this current deadline. Capital Christian is coming on the auction block in just a couple of days. $5 million opening bid, and they expect it to go for more than that. When you bid at an auction, I'm sure you're familiar with this, you have to render cash on the spot if you get the bid. So financing for us or anything like that, they will not go with that. They will not cut a deal for us. It's too high of a risk. So that leaves us with the Silver State that we have been working on all of this year. And there were 2 deals in escrow so that we could lease it from them. Patrick Gavin, who is the receiver, currently just had to report to the state board as to where the sale was in regard to Silver State. He said that Carson Montessori had tried twice with buyers, and both times the deals were in escrow and then withdrawn. So these are deals where they have a guaranteed renter or leaser, and the deal still did not go through. So where we are on this is the Planning Commission and the city supervisors had said if I could come to them with a rock-solid deal, they would be willing to extend the time so that the deal could come to fruition. That is what I plan on presenting to them to see if they will give us an extension. Should they deny the extension, my plan B is to, and I've already contacted the Children's Museum, we've been there before, and secured classroom sites so that what we vacate, we can bus those students daily. Is it the best? Is it ideal? Absolutely not. But are we willing to abide by the law and also make it work because we feel that our school is every bit worth saving and continuing on in existence? We did get in writing that we can stay in the upper building forever, that they did have to grandfather us in. Initially, they had tried to include it and making us have to vacate the entire area, but we were able to get in writing that they had to agree that the upper building had to be grandfathered in. Is it way too small? Absolutely, but we can make it do. To get a deal through, a real estate deal through, you usually need at least 90 days And right now, Silver State has a special use permit that's been issued to Argent and Silver State, and it is due to expire in August. But if we can make a deal, then we won't have to go through that special use process again. They have indicated that it will retain an e-occupancy. Otherwise, it shows a change of use, and you have to start all over again. And that can be a long, drawn-out process. Yes, Mike?
So if Plan A doesn't go through,
Yes.
you're looking at putting the secured testing site at the Children's Museum and possibly a class of students or two?
No, what we would do is we would bring the secured testing site back into the main building, and we would place doors. We're an open school, but we do have a central part of it that has walls around it, just no doors. We would place doors on it to make it secure to meet that mandate. And then our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade would go to the Children's Museum. We've also contacted WNC, who's been our partner in education through all of this. We frequently go to their site for classes. And in fact, when we were waiting for the building to be brought up to code down below to obtain our special use permit, which everyone may not realize, in July, they granted it of 2017, but we were not able to occupy it for 7 months because we had to make all of these improvements to it because it was going from a business occupancy to a school, and the requirements for schools are very, very stringent. I mean, double layers of sheetrock on all the walls and those kinds of things. So WNC, we spent part of our time on the WNC campus. They have been looking for a building for us up there to occupy as Plan C.
And I guess, so my other question is just, if we extended for a 6-year contract period, you would be able to sustain that if nothing else came through during this contract period or this extension?
It is a doable. Is it feasible? Is it the best? No. But could it be sustained? Yes. The Children's Museum likes us to come because we pay them a lease. We don't just go there. They make money off of us. The next, any other questions on number 3? Okay. Number 4, our student achievement. Our MAP scores are consistently above the district average. This year we did drop in stars. We have worked very, very diligently this past year to fill any of the holes, to quickly identify what they are. And I do want to state that one of those stars was the result of, we have a small enrollment compared to the statistical numbers that you have to use. And so we could only have 1.75 students not take the test. I don't know, I know that the other schools suffer from this too. There's a movement across the country to not have your children take standardized tests. I had 2 who chose not to do that. Parents do have rights. However, we lost points, a large number of points, because we didn't meet that criteria. So this year we had 100% of the students take the standardized assessment. Also, it addressed a testing irregularity that occurred when the SBAC was first used, and the wrong button was pushed, and we took the interim test rather than the summative test. We acknowledged the error. We wrote a complete plan so that it could never happen again. We are 3 layers deep. We check every button that is pushed. There are 3 of us. We walk through on every single computer when it's set to which exam you take. There are 3 of us checking to make sure that it says summative and that that is indeed the test the students are taking. However, at that particular time, because it was a first, the company that was doing the SBAC testing also had a flaw. And that flaw was that there was no override to tell us we were taking the wrong test. And so it's set up now that if you take that interim, your results are published immediately. So you would know that you've taken the wrong test because, oh, look, on my computer I have results. It wasn't set up that way then. So we did not find out until September when the results came out that we had no results. So we immediately approached them and said, if we took your or if we took your interim test, there has to be some results from that. Not that the state could recognize them, but at least they could do some good. They said, oh no, we throw them out as soon as you're done taking it. And so we pointed out to them that it didn't pop up on our computers to show us that here are the results or anything. So those results were non-retrievable. So I think if there's a good side to this, because that really affected our star rating too. Because in essence, it showed we had 0 kids take the test and no results. If there was some good, it corrected the flaw in their system so that no one else had to suffer what we did. And of course, with our rock-solid plan in place, we have had no issues since. Equity practices, as you could see with our enrollment packet, it states that we do not discriminate. And that statement was approved by the Office of Civil Rights. And we have a document that shows that they have accepted what we have put on the bottom to show that we have equity practices. And as you could see from our presentation, culture, traditions, tolerance, acceptance is a huge part of the Montessori curriculum. Employment matters, our teachers know and our staff all know automatically that they are employees of Carson Montessori. I think perhaps now that we've taken back payroll, it's a lot clearer because our checks now say Carson Montessori. You may not realize this, but at one point they did say Carson City School District. I pointed that out to them when I first came on board because I went and I needed federal tax reports and they said, no, you don't have any? And I said, what do you mean? You're doing our payroll. I'm paying you to be paymaster. And what has happened is they had been submitted together. And so all of that now is separated. So there shouldn't be any issue with that. We have our own separate PERS account and we always have. So there is no what do I want to say, break in PERS coverage or in expenses being paid to PERS. I will tell you from a charter school perspective, having just worked with the state on them putting together their program for charter schools, there was a mandated training for all charter schools today that was predicated on the information that we gave to them, that there are some charter schools that did not realize, I guess, that they had to pay into PERS. And they had outside paymasters. So overall, statewide, with charter schools, this could be an issue. It absolutely, positively, unequivocally is not for Carson Montessori or the Carson City School District. All of that is absolutely current. The cost of operations. There is not any substantial deviation, and Our contract also clearly states, as I said, in our payroll, Carson Montessori, our cost of operations we are responsible for and are paid directly from Carson Montessori. None of that goes through the district at all. Let's see. We do manage our own internal business affairs, including all of the financial reporting requirements, and as you saw from Stephanie Hogan, all of our reports are in. We are in 100% compliance, one of the few charter schools that is. The district does receive a copy of our annual financial audit, and it is done by Dave Silva, the same auditor that the Carson City School District uses. And so that's very nice because going in between, it assures all of us that we are all on the right page. When we get to the, I think on this fiscal and business services, I do want to say that to our credit, Carson Montessori is operating in the black. We have a balanced budget. We have a rollover from the 2018-2019 school year. I know that you're familiar that most schools are operating in the red. Carson Montessori is not. We are 100% financially solvent, and we are operating in the black. And our budget for the current year that was submitted for the 1920 school year is balanced and in the black. And there are no teacher layoffs or anything like that. The purchase of district services, the district did act as our paymaster. This year we took our payroll back. What we would like to do, we pay the district to do it, to serve as our paymaster, anywhere between $65,000 and $80,000 a year. It's a percentage, you make some money off of us. It's a percentage of our gross payroll that you did. However, we have taken all of our payroll back, and but we still would like to be able to benefit from purchasing our insurance through the district because it's substantially less expensive because of the group rate. Also, the district does carry us on their workers' comp. We pay you for it, but you allow us to be on your policy because you're a self-insured entity. Legal liabilities, you did see that we do have insurance, liability insurance. I would like to add at this point that I feel that we should include the Carson City School District. We've done it before as an additional insured. I think that needs to be standard policy because we share so many things. You guys have been wonderful.
And I would agree that we have our workman's comp and a liability insurance through our business. And when we have a big project, we always put the big project one and get a certificate for it. So I think that that's one thing that I would like to see done.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. For the special education, I have a staff that, just as a side piece, has been trained by Temple Grandin, and she is speaking in Reno tonight. I have staff that is at that training and meeting. Temple Grandin is a recognized international expert on autism, along with animal science. And so when they bring her to Nevada, usually the UNR Ag Department, in cooperation with the local chapters for autism, sponsor her. But she is absolutely outstanding. And our special education department is predicated on practical life skills along with the academics and social, emotional well-being. And so it's not uncommon to see our SPED students going to the bank, learning how to write a check, having to calculate a budget, plan an event, and then figure out how to produce it and do it and fund it. All of those real world skills. They also learn through social, emotional, how to read people's expressions, what is the correct response. So it goes a little bit beyond just working with students on the academic level. All of our paperwork already is currently filed with the special services for the Carson City School District, and we would be delighted to attend the monthly meetings. Because we serve 5 different counties, we also have the availability to input from the surrounding counties and their special services departments. So that's been very beneficial to us, especially in the programs where you report your information or the specific programs that are used to generate the IEPs. It's great to let Washoe County pioneer it and test it first and find all the glitches in it, and then we can share our knowledge that, no, that really didn't work. Washoe County is doing it, and some of our special services individuals that work for us have already tried it and used it. In the English language learners, we have TESOL endorsed teachers. We attend all of the meetings. We have a representative from Carson Montessori working with Dr. Austin that attends all of the meetings. We do all of the required testing. We also found the glitch in their system. We do have trouble being able to have full access to the portal to be able to report. And so Gina is working really hard for us to be able to do that. There's just kind of a little bit of confusion because we're sponsored by the district as opposed to those that are sponsored by the state. And so she's working on us being able to report all of that.
I actually have a question on the English learners.
Yes.
And it perhaps, because you are sponsored by our district, and I know that the state is requiring every district to have an English learner policy and an English learner plan, because I'm part of the English Mastery Council and we've reviewed them. And so we went through Carson City and all the counties, and we went through the state charter authority, but you don't fall under there. So how does this work with our policies for Carson City that are required?
You just ask us and we present.
You have English learner policies?
Yes, and we will do, if you
And the
have the
plan?
regs, we will make absolutely sure that it matches the regs that you have.
So, okay, because that is something the State Board of Education adopted new criteria for the English learner district policies, and we went through and reviewed, but I'm wondering how as an English Mastery Council, we then would review these charters that are under districts that do you follow our district policy, or?
Yes, usually. We do.
Follow that?
We do. Are you asking me, Laura,
Yeah.
for the general, for the whole state?
I don't know how the state does it, but I'm just realizing as a body reviewing it, there may be pockets of charter schools that aren't able to be reviewed.
You are absolutely correct. We follow all your policies, and that's once again where we're grateful to Sue Kima, because Sue would call me right away, meet with me right away. Like with all the testing, with all the WIDA for ELL, for all the SBAC testing, all of it, it runs through you guys, the district, the Carson City School District, it does. They don't send anything directly to me because I'm sponsored by you. And I'm so grateful to that. You guys have no idea how grateful I am, because as I watch those sponsored by the state charter school authority, they're struggling so, because it goes through the state charter school authority, and then they don't really know what to do with it. I mean, there's a lot of holes in their system. For me, it's a luxury because it comes to you, it comes through Ricky, it comes through Sue, it comes through Laura, and it comes right to me. I mean, Laura comes out and delivers the boxes, goes through the boxes, inventories them with us. So we are 100% compliant. But the others, you are, if you're on the state board, absolutely dig deeply and be concerned, because there are pockets out there that have huge holes.
So I guess my second part of that question would be like the bullying policies that need to be updated after every session when they change something. Does Carson Montessori as a sponsored charter adopt Carson City School District's updated policies?
Yes. We usually follow, and we follow NRS. Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because the NRS has some pretty specific things when in regard to bullying.
Okay.
And so they're very specific
So
in NRS.
you pretty much, your governing board pretty much adopts Carson City's board
Yes, we do.
policies and follows that. Okay. And then just another question, how many English learners did you have this year?
I'm going to turn to Sarah to get that number. I do have the number of IEPs was 28.
Okay.
And I missed that on your sheet.
Sarah Ross, we had. Yeah, sorry, Renee needs it on the mic for the record.
She is our representative who attends all of the meetings, and she works directly with Dr. Austin.
My name is Sarah Ross. We had 5 active English language learners this year, and we had 8 exited but monitored students.
Don't leave in case they have some more questions. You're not getting off that easy.
I think that answers my question. I just wanted to make sure that you guys do have an English learner plan, and that if it's our plan, I know you do, and I know it's up to date because ours is all good. But
It better be. Yours better
but I
be.
guess it is actually. But I guess that would just be, how then do we, as this, I mean, it's the same thing, I guess, as any other school site, right? To make sure that they're following the plan and implementing those things. Okay. The state charter authority or under our charter?
It would be under the state charter authority, I would think, because
no.
they're governing.
No.
They're still.
No, they're not.
Oh, that's right, okay.
You guys are. So you've come out before and done inspections or checks, or I meet with Mrs. Kima and I bring all the documentation that she needs. There's also files in Renee's office that I bring copies of reports that we've submitted, our audit, everything. There's big binders in there that have everything. Number 12, class extracurricular activities and sports. As you know, under NRS, the district has to offer, if there's a particular sport that a student wants to participate in and we don't offer it, if it's age appropriate. In all the 12 years, we've only had one student who did that. She was in 6th grade, and she wanted to play volleyball at Carson Middle School. I applied the eligibility rules to her, which made her ineligible, because you have to have a certain academic standard to be able to play, or you will lose your state accreditation for sports. And so I will also tell you, however, that there is a group that has been formed just specifically for charter schools across the state in dealing with sports too. So that takes some of it off of your plates, although you do have to offer it. But routinely, they don't. Internet policies are the same as yours, as you could see by the contract that is signed. We do have something, though, that is very unusual to us. We have what we call Knowledge is Power, and it is a series that is presented to our students and our families, and we open it to the community. so that it is up to date and the latest that is out there in regard to the internet, in regard to drugs, in regard to bullying, issues that are faced, that schools are faced with. We have this series and we stay right on top of it, whatever is the latest that is out there. Student information system, we are on Infinite Campus with you through the district. Are there any other questions?
Anybody else from the board have any questions? Seeing none.
Okay. Thank you. I do just want to say that, as I said before, what a luxury it is to be sponsored by the Carson City School District. The state has asked us repeatedly if we would like to join the State Public Charter School Authority, to which I have said thank you, but no thank you, because I absolutely have the best relationship and the best sponsorship that there can be. And it's because it's so open, transparent, and two-way. There has never, ever been a doubt to the support that you have given to this school to help make it a success. So I'm very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more question. The only thing I didn't find in the, I didn't find in the packet was the blank copy of the new student enrollment form.
It is there, and it is on the one that I put together.
Parent,
the
teacher, child.
Collage. There's a collage.
Okay.
If you want to see the whole packet, I can give you that, but it is listed on, let me flip through, where it specifically states, the recipe for a sizzling, sensational student success. That is our enrollment packet.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, I just didn't figure you wanted all those pages.
No, I just wanted to make sure that it did
Yes, it
acknowledge
does.
that it's a separate entity and.
Yes,
so
it does. I
don't have
believe it's
that,
on the
so-
top of it.
Okay.
It's the first thing you see, and then on the bottom is the OCR approved non-discrimination.
Okay. Take your word for it.
Well, I'll give you,
It's just,
Laurel, I'll give you a copy of the whole packet.
I guess I'm kind of wondering, because I know that we've extended for, it's alternated 3 and 6 year. I'm
Yes.
just concerned about if the city were to change its mind and say, you can't keep attending school in this location or whatnot, I'm wondering, what would we do? I mean, is it
Well, they can't
certain
on,
that
they
it's-
can't on the upper building. They cannot change their mind.
Okay.
That's,
Because that truly is my one concern, is what happens if something changes type deal. So if, so.
well, if you don't renew it, I mean, like if you chose not to renew it tonight, this, I know you're talking about down the road, but tonight, if you choose not to renew it, you're going to get 284 kids back because I can't pull it off, by July 1st with the state
And
public
I'm
charter school
not
authority.
advocating
No, I know you're
not
not.
renew it. I mean, I'm saying the one concern I have is that question. I mean, I think you guys do great work. I work with teachers that you've worked with before. You know what I mean? I know the value of what you're doing. I know that there's a lot of families that really appreciate Carson Montessori.
Should something like that, the unforeseen total disaster happen, remember that in no way are you liable. No way are you liable. Everything is liquidated. You just would get the students back, or all 5 counties would get the students back. But in no way are you liable for anything, like expenses or anything like that. You're not.
Okay.
You're not. So, we are very financially solvent. We are one of the few, if not the only school in the state of Nevada that's in the black. And that has to speak volumes. But that's all that happens. The reason that you did 6 years was at that time, it was mandated by the state. I didn't have time today to read the new law that extends it to 10 years, or that, what they did they give options and say it could be 3 or it could be 6 or it could be 10? I believe the way it's written, It can be as few as 3, as many as 10. Their intention was so that, because it is a very lengthy process on our part, not on yours, but on ours, the document I have to submit to the state, even though you're my sponsor, I still have to file with the Legislative Council Bureau. It's like 54 pages long to show and prove that we have met, the goals in our charter to be issued a charter. That document is the law that I follow. It's like a statute, so.
And I have one more question, kind of. As I was leaving the state, one of the projects I was working on was kind of sponsoring school districts to monitor charter schools when they're underperforming. And so, I don't know, I don't even think the guidance memo was done. I think we're primarily working with Washoe and Clark because that's where they were. Has there been anything in that area that we've heard from NDE? Or I know we have a new state superintendent, so I mean, the focus could have shifted. I'm just wondering if anything's come about with that.
Not at this time, but Susan Kima for the record, not at this time, but we do anticipate changes, especially with this recent legislative session and the changes around schools that need improvement.
No? Dawn? Oh, you look like you had a question.
First of all, thanks for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I know you guys do a great job. It's been a few years now, but I know I've come
You
into
came out
your-
for SimCity.
Yeah.
We so
and,
appreciated it.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. So I don't have any issues with it. I just, from the school district's end, is there anything that we haven't heard that we have concerns with, or what don't I know?
Thank you, Member Cassiopo. I have been able to visit with Principal Daniels on regularly, I should say, and had visited her site, and they've always been able to perform well. They did have the testing hiccup that was some cause for concern, but our staff has always been welcomed up there, and they've accepted input from the district. They've asked for our help on occasion. I think from my seat, the biggest question that I had was where they were going to be able to manage their affairs from their current site, or if the city was going to require something else. I think Mrs. Daniels has answered that well. I don't see any reason why the board should worry about re-upping, as it were, the charter agreement based on the fulfillment of the questions that I had asked and that have been responded by Mrs. Daniels.
Just to add to that, we, myself, Mr. Stokes, and AJ were all asked to come to a board meeting, and we attended a board meeting of theirs too. So it's pretty much a two-way, and like she said, very transparent membership. So, and to me, it's just unbelievable in this community that in 12 years, we cannot find a place for you guys. Though it's not like you guys aren't trying. You've been trying since day one. We see you at the city meetings and the planning meetings and around town every something comes up. But your perseverance is just amazing to keep it going under these circumstances. Is just amazing. And the 248 plus the ones that have already gone through are better for it. And we appreciate that of you. And I know if a place comes available and the city's okay with it, I know that'll happen just because of the people that you guys are and the students that you have. I'm a little intimidated. They speak better on the mic than I do, but I didn't start when I was in kindergarten, so that's my good thing there. But it's not because you guys aren't trying, and we know that you're trying, and we appreciate it, and we do enjoy the two-way communication, and Carson City is better for you being a school here.
Thank you.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the charter school renewal agreement with Carson Montessori Charter School and the Carson City School District for a 6-year term commencing July 1st, 2019.
Second.
Second by Laurel, motion by Dawn. Any discussion on the motion? Any public discussion on this motion? Anybody want to come up and talk? Seeing none, take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations. We'll see you in 6 years.
Thank you, thank you, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Now, I think, Jessica, you need to come up and sign this before you go, too.
Okay.
And thank you, students, for being here. We know it's summer and it's tough, but what a great thing you guys have done, and we appreciate you being here and taking the time to show us everything. And parents, thanks for bringing them, too. We're just going to take like a 2-minute break so we can get this all taken care of, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, I'm going to call this session back into session. Starting with number 8, informal update on the 2018-2019 academic parent-teacher teams, APTT, in the Carson City School District for discussion only. Mrs. Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. The academic parent-teacher teams stand for, APT stands for Academic Parent-Teacher Teams. This is a family engagement project for the elementary level. And as you can see on the first page, that slide there, you can see that Carson City School District is in partnership with West Ed, which is a regional think tank that offers research-based resources for school districts and states. We are also working very closely with Dr. Maria Paredes, who authored the academic parent-teacher team as well, the project as well. I also have, you can see Carrie Pryor's name is up there, the Professional Learning and Family Engagement Coordinator. She was the catalyst for the program, helping to make it successful. She coordinated with West Ed, principals, family engagement folks at the sites, caregivers, interpreters, all kinds of, working with the grants department to make this project work. And she was the original presenter for tonight, and due to a family reason, you've got me. So here we go. Academic parent-teacher teams support or bring to life our strategic plan's goal 3, engage parents and families. When we're looking at making a paradigm shift for family engagement, what we're looking at is moving from doing things to parents to doing things with parents, from having one-way communication to two-way communication, from having school-based projects to a classroom focus, from making it just a social activity to making sure that whatever we're doing with families is learning-based and is differentiated for grade level. Too far. Specifically looking at strategy 3.2.2, establish educational opportunities to ensure parent, teachers, administrators, and community members have the necessary skills to guide students in the pathways to success. You've seen in previous parent survey data that not always do our parents feel that they're equipped to support their child with the learning that's expected. And what APTT does, Academic Parent-Teacher Teams, is a structure that provides parents with resources and procedures to help them support students and their learning. Why do we need to focus on parent engagement? Now, this group, the strategic plan group, our educators all know why, but let's take a look a little bit at the research. When you're looking at student learning time, and let's say you take 180 days of school and 6 hours of actual academic learning, and we're assuming each of these elementary students have 8 hours of sleep a night, okay? You can see that while at this time of the year, we might feel as educators that these students have been with us for an awful lot of time, right? We feel like they've been living with us because it's at the end of the year and we've been through the year together. However, in reality, most of the time is spent away from school. And if they're in elementary school, they've been with some kind of caregiver, somebody who is oftentimes their first educator, which is their family, their parents. So it's really important because of all that time away that we really engage our parents so that we can make that 12% really effective. Looking at APTT, the structure, let's take a look at the structure. When we first start out, we have a team meeting at the beginning of the year to start to build a sense of community and family support in the classroom. Then in October, you can see we try to put this in with our current structures. In October, we have an individual session with the parents, and that's during that regular parent-teacher conference time in the fall. Then there are 2 more academic parent team meetings with the teacher and the classroom. So let's take a look at what the individual session, the purpose of that is, because that's the most familiar and the most, the one that we're most familiar with. The goal of the individual session, the individual parent conference, is to build strong collaborative relationships, update student academic progress. We give the report card out at that time, and a collaboration between the teacher and the student for a plan of action. When we're looking at the team meetings, the complement to all of that, what we start off with is welcoming and team building activities with the families in the room. And especially at the beginning of the year, they come in there, they're very quiet, they're very polite, they don't always know each other, especially in the lower grades. And it's really kind of fun to watch them as they progress through these team meeting sessions. The teacher will provide the parents foundational grade level skills, not really get totally deep into the standards, but it's skill-based. Is it multiplication? Is it subtraction? Is it sight words? Is it reading comprehension? It's a skill-based information. They will share data, which I'll get to in a minute. They'll pick an activity, and they'll model that activity related to the goals of the classroom. And then they'll have the parents practice the activity. So the parents actually practice the activity, have all the information, and you have a folder or two folders. Teresa Marler from Empire, she put every PowerPoint that she's done for the year in that packet. And then you have another one that just shows that there's activities that go home with the families. And then before the families leave, they set a SMART goal. They set a goal for their student that's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So they set it so that they can accomplish it in between meetings. When we're looking at how do the teachers present data and keep student privacy, what they'll do in the beginning is they'll take whatever it is, if they're working on addition, and that's the goal for the class, they will show that green bar that goes across there, shows where the student should be at that first meeting. And you can see oftentimes, if it's a new skill or concept, they might be below the expected competency. So let's take a look at number 4 there. What happens is there's a parent who has a folder, like you have up there, and in that folder somewhere is a number, and that corresponds to their child's data. So there's no names given, but they can see where their child falls within the norm. And what is the one thing that parents want to know when they're in parent conferences? Is my child within the norm? Are they exceeding the norm? And they hope their child isn't below the norm. But here we are showing where they should be at that time of the year. And that's not untypical. That can be pretty typical of some classrooms. And then up there where the 90 is, you can see that that's where they should be at the end of the year. So let's skip forward. If you look at the third team meeting, you can see what happened with our little number 4 over there. That child was below grade level in the very beginning. You can see where the bar was in the second meeting, and then you can see what's happened with them between that support in the classroom, good attendance, hopefully, and then those parent activities and the collaboration between the school and the child and the home. So that's an idea. That's how the teachers share the data with their families. The team meeting objectives are to foster a safe, welcoming environment, which all families can learn from one another and share experiences and strategies. Like I say in the very beginning, they're very shy, very quiet. The teachers trying to get the families to engage, and by the end, I was in a kindergarten classroom the first year. They're exchanging phone numbers for play dates just because they become such a support group for each other. So they ask questions. They ask questions that maybe they didn't think of, or one person might ask a question and another person is very thankful that they've learned with that, maybe a tip that they didn't think about. The other purpose of the team meeting is to create the opportunity for classroom teachers to share information such as student academic progress and strategies that help the entire school classroom community. And then, of course, to inspire families to take action to support their child's academic learning goals. Just some data here. We had 33 teachers participate in our 6 elementary schools. We touched about 780 students that were supported. You have in your board packet the teacher survey data. And when you look at that, that's the first part of your packet in the front. The 4 was the highest score, and the 1 is the lowest. So you can see, this is 2 years in a row that we have pretty consistently high data. Could the teachers use some additional support from their school principals? That maybe it would be an area to work on. But really what I think is always the thing that speaks to me, if you look at the teacher comments in the back, I just pulled one out. And I'm going to read it too. The growth this year was insane. I do believe once parents become aware of the standards and expectations, they can be a vital piece in their child's education, and it came from a kindergarten teacher. So I love the comments because they're very telling. The teachers are telling us, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's well worth it. Going back to the next part of the data is the parent survey results. That's more towards the back of your packet. We had 263 responses from our 6 schools. If you look at the second page of the parent data, something that stood out to me was that to be invited by my child to APTT meetings was important to me. Parents, just like us, want to be invited. We're willing to do the extra work. We're willing to go the extra mile. Somebody just needs to ask us sometime. It makes us feel important. Another piece I thought we had some really good data was team meetings with other parents in the classroom was a positive experience, which is building that sense of community. The third page, when you're looking at do the activities demonstrated by the teacher help me understand how to help my child at home, extremely high positive marks. And that's something on our previous survey I mentioned that parents don't always know how to help their child. And that's a main purpose of this particular program. And then again, if you look at the comments, if you notice for Mrs. Ramirez, that we do have them in Spanish and they're in English. And we were able to get them translated so that Carrie and I knew what they were saying. But if you look throughout the comments in the parent data, the word learning was used throughout. Addressing learning was used throughout, and those came from the parents. And again, of course, the parent comment I'll highlight is, it was helpful to have other parents ask questions that I didn't think about. I also like being able to see how my child's progress compares to other students. So it's an opportunity for that, because that doesn't happen usually in an individual parent conference. I want to thank our interpreters, our site family engagement staff, child support, care support, because some schools had some child care in the evenings. I want to especially thank Valerie Dockery and her grants team for securing our supplies. Jessica and Samantha were there, and of course, again, Carrie Pryor. And then one last slide is our next steps. We will continue to have funding for our Title I schools for the 2019-20 school year. Mrs. Pryor, Carrie has been invited by Alberto Quintero from the Nevada Department of Ed's Office of Parental and Family Engagement to present on June 19th at the Family and Parent Engagement Advisory Committee. She'll be here presenting on 5th Street, and then she'll be zoomed in to Las Vegas so the committee members down there can see the presentation. And then also Carrie and Dr. Maria Paredes, which I said was the author of Academic Parent-Teacher Teams from West Ed, are presenting at the Family Engagement Conference being held in Reno, July 10th through the 12th. Her presentation is on July 10th up there in Reno. And I just need to note that Dr. Maria Paredes is flying up from Florida to present with Carrie up here because she's that excited about the data that you have before you.
And I'll just say, Mr. Stokes and I actually were at last year's Parent and Family Conference, and we attended Carrie's presentation on the same material. And you did a good job, Mrs. Kima, but you did not do it justice to that presentation that Mrs. Pryor did. So she did a great job. And I think that there was one session I had attended through West Ed, which was just kind of the philosophical, this is what it is. But then when you went to Carrie's, it was like, this is what it is, and here's how we did it, here's our results. And so it was quite impressive, so she represented us well.
She does always. I am always so proud of her work and how she represents the district, and I knew I wasn't going to hold a candle to her presentation.
And the July 10th, 12th conference is actually the national conference that's being held in Reno. So I don't know if we have people going, but it's a really good, I went to the one in Pittsburgh, and it's quite the event, and you learn a lot. So
We do.
Hopefully we have people going. Okay, good.
Mrs. Kim, I just want to commend you for the amazing presentation that you just shared with us. I am a strong advocate of parent engagement. I think that's the key to student success, especially with our Spanish speaker families. So, and I was extremely impressed with the translation done in these presentations that is done to the parents at the schools. So, amazing job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few teachers about it, and they all come back with positive comments on this. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. The more you can get parents involved, the more successful you're going to be for these students. So, it, like you said, it kind of builds a community in a classroom. It opens up an availability of resources that parents may not otherwise know exist. And what we're seeing on the scores is that the students are excelling as a result of it. I was curious, all the data looks really good. Probably the biggest comment where people disagreed was the time that it's available. It was only 12% of the people that sound like, boy, we wish it was at a different time. What time do we hold these generally?
So the teachers had choices. So what we did with the, since this data came from the last APTT, it was during the March parent-teacher conferences, which tend to be during the day. And some teachers chose to not hold it during that time and use that time as prep, and then came back in the evening to hold their conferences. Others, some had good turnouts during the day, but I would agree that the parents tend to like it after the business hours. And then we have the challenge of teachers, especially when we do have kids all day, is having the teachers teach all day and then making sure we have funding for them to be able to come back at night, because it's hard for us to trade time when they're tied to that classroom. We we have done classroom trades, like when a second grade teacher is working with her team of parents, the fifth grade teacher might be watching the kids during the day, and then vice versa. And so they've developed these cross-grade level activities when it's during the day and we have kids present.
So I attended some of the March ones, and one of them was Mrs. Cassiopo. I wonder, though, by seeing some of the teachers that I saw, if they wouldn't be doing that kind of stuff anyway, just because they're that kind of teacher. Mrs. Kaiser, they all seem to go a little bit above. Is there a way, are we looking at teachers to get into this program that might not be at that level, but we want them to get to that level at all? How do they decide they're going to participate in this program, or do the principals ask them to be? Or how exactly does that work?
So we asked, because it was a pilot in the beginning, so we've asked for volunteers. And then, and some of the teachers, sometimes it takes a lot of work for prep. It does. But I have to tell you, parenting, family engagement is hard work. You know what? And especially our hard-to-reach families, it's really important. Our families of poverty, our families who are getting used to us as a country, our very young parents sometimes who just are inexperienced, really have all the potential in the world there, but just inexperienced. It takes a lot of work. And sometimes there are other family commitments, that some of the teachers have. And it's as far as a union contract, you can't make somebody work at night.
So that doesn't really answer, how did, they're all volunteer? They all say they want to be part of this program?
Yes.
Okay. And then what is our cost? I know it's paid by for grants.
So last year it was $30,000 because we had the large initial training, and this year it was $15,000. And that money came from Title I dollars that Valerie Dockery had set aside, because Title I schools are required to have parent engagement activities or parent engagement focus in their school performance plans.
And I think to go along with what you're saying, I think that for some of those same families you're describing, the school environment is intimidating. And so through activities such as this, families start to view it as a safe place. And I think that's why things like this are important to continue with and to really encourage parent participation, because it opens the door, and that's how we truly break down those barriers and have relationships with families.
And you saw in there, they had those reports with the numbers like she had. And it was amazing when I was sitting in there at the beginning ones that they had, and people were like almost relieved to know that their kids weren't where they were supposed to be, but there were 20 other kids that weren't either. And then to see how the growth went at the end of the one, and they're all like, okay, we see how this works. So that part was really cool, because you really do, as a parent, you feel like, oh my gosh, I failed. But then you see it's not just you, it's the kids. So I like those reports. It's been nice.
And I know that you say that some of these teachers would be doing this kind of work, but this is a purposeful structure. And that this allowed that training to show those teachers, I think this is a good thing to do, but the why behind it. And then when you have that why, it is very purposeful, that confidence when you're working with families, because sometimes teachers are more comfortable with the students than they are the other adults, but that's also part of their clientele. So it just really supported the teachers who were into it, and a lot of planning together. So there's some areas, some schools have really taken this on, and they've got a good foundation for this.
My wife, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, my wife was telling me that everything we talked about is what she was relaying to me, but getting parents to, they're never gonna understand all the standards and what it takes to achieve them, but being able as a teacher to focus in on certain standards, where as a teacher, you're seeing, we really gotta hit this. This was a great venue to do that and to get the parents on board, not just for it, but to understand it a little better. And that's really where I think the successes came from, is they really became a team going, hey, we're trying to all do the same thing the same way now.
Right. And for the teacher too, there is so much to tackle and this process supported them on narrowing a particular area. And if the students seemed to be really doing very well, it was okay for them to change their goal. But most of them kept the same goal for all year. And then that too, we have very busy parents. Very busy parents who want to do the right thing for their children, but if you bombard them with 5 different things, it's just overwhelming.
I was just going to add, in addition to the academic components, to share with the parents, I would also recommend to add a cultural component to draw their attention, and that helps them become or be more welcome. They feel more welcome once you add that into it. So,
okay, thank you.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, thank you very much for that update.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 9, discussion and proposed changes to CCSD Regulation 275, School Social Worker Safe School Professionals Program, for discussion only. Mrs. Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. The current policy and regulation 275 was developed in 2017 when our Safe School Professional Program was relatively new. After 2 years, we have found that the policy is still to be current, but the regulation, which spells out the details of the Safe School Professional Program, to be in need of revision. Mr. Dave Calario is with me here tonight. He is our consultant who's been working with the district on the development of the Safe School Professionals Program since its inception, which I'm ever grateful to that he's here. He's here with us tonight to provide you with some of the highlighted changes in the regulation, and together we can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mrs. Kima. Excuse my voice. I am totally apologetic. Madam President, Mr. Vice President, board members, thank you, Mr. Stokes, Mrs. Kima. Thank you for the opportunity to present. As Mrs. Kima said, when you were kind enough to approve this this regulation a couple of years ago, we have advanced the program a little bit, maybe a little bit more, but I think some of these changes are going to be more reflective. These edits will be more reflective of what our safe school professionals, school social workers are doing. Most of these changes are minimal. One I would say is moderate, and I'll save that one to the end. But just to cover, I know you have a robust agenda, so I'll make this very brief. The three key things or changes, and it would be on the second page for the essential duties and responsibilities, specifically Tier 1, 2, and 3. These are the heart of what our safe school professionals do in our schools. Tier 1 is meant for as much of the school as possible. It is built on prevention. One of the things we wanted to add is at the very bottom, is as simple as it may sound, but our social workers who walk the halls, who have lunch with their students, that is a key component of a Tier 3. They're building relationships with the kids. And if one of those kids and or their parents need a Tier 2 or 3 service, that relationship has been developed. So we wanted to make sure that that was reflective because they truly do that. Tier 2, which is group work. We are social workers, safe school professionals, find students with like needs. It could be chronic absenteeism, which is huge in our district, as you probably know, and our social workers are going to be working on that. They've worked on it for the last 2 years, but we're going to put more emphasis on that with a screening tool that we will use and attempt to engage the parents better and more efficiently. We wanted to change the percentage to give an idea that previously it was 10 to 15, but in reality it's 15 to 20% of all the work the safe school professionals do are in this Tier 2, and it might even be a little bit more. And then Tier 3 is your traditional one-on-one. These are students who may need clinical work, which would be diagnosis and treatment of mental illness, which we do not do currently. We refer to community partners, students that have interaction with law enforcement, students that need one-on-one. And we wanted to reflect that 3 to 5%. We were using the national average when we developed this regulation. And again, it's a little bit higher for us. And I think that might be typical in a new program, any new program. So we wanted to reflect that. We also wanted to reflect that with the assessments that our safe school professionals do, a key assessment or screening is a suicide screening. The board also approved that policy about 1.5 years ago, and the social workers asked 5 key questions, and if they feel that the student may be suicidal, have suicidal ideation and or a plan, then they would refer to one of 2 community partners that we use for the formal clinical risk assessment. So we wanted to make sure that that was reflected as well. The second of 3 things is on the next page, page 3, where we wanted to reflect we now have a formal documentation program in what we call SISP, or Specialized Instructional Support Personnel. Previous to this, our social workers literally used a Excel spreadsheet that was provided by the Department of Education. They were required to fill that out, if you will, and submit it once a month. And it talked about the types of tiers, that the services that they would provide, and then So with the SISP, it's formally inputted into Infinite Campus. They document things. There are drill downs, if you will, Tier 1, and maybe the various types of programs that they are doing. Tier 2, the different types of groups they're conducting. And Tier 3, the individual supports and interventions, specifically what they are doing there. We also, they also can do more than that. They can also keep track of referrals. They can add students to caseloads and their families to formal caseloads. And overall, I think this will lend to better reporting that we've been able to do up until now. And we started this maybe about a third into the school year. So this upcoming school year will be the first one that we could start fresh with the full school year. The last change, probably the most significant, if you will, and that is on page 4, it's the Safe School Professional Position Requirements. As you can see, most of them are crossed out now. When we started up the program, we quite honestly needed anybody that we can get. So it was very flexible, and these were actually the positions that were recommended by the Department of Education, at least to start out, and then based on how the school districts progressed, that they can go ahead and then kind of mold it to their own. So many of these that we took out, for example, a clinical psychologist, that is somebody that is slightly in a different position. Can you have a clinical psychologist who is a school social worker? Probably, but it would be very, very rare. Others, a licensed nurse, they have their own profession and they do what they do very well, and our safe school professionals work with them closely. A BSW, which is a bachelor's of social work. Most of our social workers, when we started out, if they weren't students, they were a bachelor's level. And now that we progressed, we want to be in line with what most school districts do, not only in our state, but nationwide, and that is to require a minimum of an MSW or a Master's of Social Work. I think we progressed to the point that we can do that. The other thing that, one other comment on this is that we used to pay our students, our part-time students, we used to pay them. But again, we're beyond that now. It paid off for us because we were able to provide, if you will, the field into harvest, because many of our student social workers that were paid part-time did go on to become our full-time employees. The other thing, by not paying part-time social workers anymore, that allows us to put the funding into these full-time positions. We feel that that's probably what is best. Will we take student social workers? Absolutely we will, but they will not be paid. They usually would go through, most likely if they're at UNR and they have a field supervisor, and then our social workers could work with them. We haven't had many requests, but again, we would entertain each and every one. The other thing we wanted to reflect is that when this policy, regulation was developed and approved, all of our safe school professionals were contractors. We've been able to reverse that. The vast majority are formal Carson City School District employees with full benefits like everybody else. We currently have 2 of our 12 positions. Only 2 are contractors, one of which is an MFT, marriage and family therapist intern. And then the other one is, but she's working full-time. The other one is somebody who voluntarily, who has benefits already. He has a pension already through the National Guard and all, but he is an MSW. And he, to help us balance the budget, to make it work with even providing, there were several components, but one was, he said, I'll be a contractor. I don't need benefits. I already have those. So we wanted to reflect that these positions are also district positions, and that both district employees as well as contracted employees must follow the regulations. So that's it in a nutshell. Did you have any questions or comments?
Just a couple comments on it. On page 3, 4, and 5, the heading regulation number 275 continued needs to be moved up to the top. And then on page 5, the first paragraph with the changes, whether hired as district employees or contractors, I think there's an extra comma there. And then whether hired as district employees or contractors, comma, all safe school professionals must adhere to district requirements. I don't think you need a comma in between that, including but not limited to these things. And then my question is, are those employment requirements? What type of, or is requirements enough there? That was what I was wondering on that one.
Do you have any, I don't know if I would,
So it says whether hired as district employees, contractors, all safe school professionals must adhere to district requirements, including but not limited to wearing identification badges? Yeah. Complying with those bulleted.
Yes, and that's what I was wondering. Or do we want to just say district requirements, or are those like employment I wasn't sure how. It just seemed like it was a little vague to me, so that's why I was wondering.
Well, those look like,
Clearly, but I don't know. Does anybody, if it doesn't bother anybody else, just leave it as district requirements. But you don't need a comma before it.
Okay, all right.
Anyone else? No?
Yeah, I don't, I guess, was the question clear? Are these district requirements, or are these other requirements that we've adopted?
no, I want to, and again, I'll let Mrs. Kima, she would, being a consultant or contractor myself, that my understanding, they're district requirements, that we also hold our volunteers and contractors to the same standards that we would employees. So if there's a better way we can say that, certainly we're open to that.
But they are district requirements for all employees, but we want to make sure that our contractors follow them as well. They're part of, through HR, human resources. These are the things that.
And I think once we get it cleared up with the extra revisions removed, it will read much clearer. And then the bullets, with the regulations up at the top, it'll be more clear that way too.
Okay. Mr. Pavlakis, do you think we should put in the word, or Dr. Delphin, should we put in the word employment requirements, or is there something specific you think would add to this?
I would, Jose Delphin for the record, I would keep it simple and say that whether you're a district employee or a contractor, that you would follow all the policies and regulations of the district. And that pretty much covers everything, I think.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, like, all the examples, I mean, and I think we know how difficult the jobs are. I just don't know in our policies and regulations if we need all of those. I just don't think it's necessary. I think it kind of muddies the water, and I would prefer to have just a very, this is what's required. If you have to document. Like, that's gonna be exactly what they're documenting is what their supervisors are gonna go through with them. But I think it's just, the expectation is you document required material. But I think the more bullets you have, and we talked to Bobby because he was sick and Jenny had a headache, you know what I mean? Those kinds of things, nobody reads the policy then, because then they're just like, where's the good stuff? What am I looking for? And I think we just want to kind of pare it down and just get to the facts. That's my suggestion.
Mr. Walker, are you talking about that same section? Maybe just covering it with the policies and regulations of the districts and leaving the bullets out in that particular section, or throughout?
I'm just thinking when you look at this, I think in that section I was talking about specifically there, but I think the examples aren't really necessary for our purposes here, because the people who are going to be using these policies and regulations are going to know examples of what types of things are documented. I just think that as somebody who's an administrator in a school, I really don't want to read a bunch of stuff that I don't need to if I just want to get to the policy, make sure that my school's in compliance, if that makes sense. Or if, even if I'm a concerned parent and I want to make sure the school's doing their job, they just want to get to the facts.
Mr. Walker, I'm sorry. If I may ask, so are you talking about page 3, all the bullets on you? Okay. I can address that a little bit. The reason why we put this in here is because there was a lot of confusion on how much information or what should be documented in the record. If there was too much information put in, that could hold us possibly liable. We had talked with Mr. Pavlakis as well. We wanted short and sweet. We didn't want, for example, a student went to a therapist and was diagnosed with mental illness, schizoaffective disorder, or whatever, but just they went to a therapist or that kind of thing, and there was a lot of confusion I had a lot of questions from social workers. I mean, that was probably one of the most common questions I got is, Dave, how do we document? How much or little? What should we say? What shouldn't we say? So obviously we wouldn't want to put this in a policy, you're right, but we felt that by the guidance and regulations, now at some point these might be able to be removed, but that was the reason why we put it in, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. But I would agree with you on first response or first looking at that, it is a lot of information, a lot of bullets, but I think it served as a guidance to how the social workers should document, and probably also how we could stay out of legal trouble, perhaps, or some kind of ethical trouble.
Jose Delphin for the record. Mr. Calaria, I'm thinking maybe in the handbook would be a better place instead of in here, because that would give you a little bit more flexibility to change things as they grow or develop, rather than in regulation, keeping the regulation a little cleaner, like everybody's talking. I'm just thinking out loud.
No, Dr. Delphin, thank you. That definitely would work as long as we get the information out. I developed the handbook after this was written, so I think that bodes well. I think that could really work. During the summer, I will be updating the handbook anyway, so if it is the pleasure of the board, we can certainly take this out of here. For, the documentation requirements, keep what we have in there, which is our recommendation with the SISP, but perhaps remove the bullet examples of documentation and put it in the handbook, and I will just make sure our safe school professionals are aware of that and continue to impress upon that. So thank you.
And I was going to suggest that was more of a training piece, I think. I think one of the things we've worked with a lot this year is kind of cleaning up old language in these regulations and kind of saying, well, we don't know why something like this is in there. And so I'm just saying, why not keep it clean and make it easy for boards down the road and not have to redo what we're doing? If we just have a solid policy and then training materials to support it, because that, of course, is important. So.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. That's an excellent suggestion, and Dr. Delphin's recommendation. As long as the information is disseminated, then it should be okay. I just want them to keep in mind these guidance procedures. So I think the handbook would work very nicely.
I just have a question on that documentation. When it's entered into Infinite Campus, who has access to that? Do teachers, when they pull up Infinite Campus, see that documentation, or is that just for administrators, or who can see that?
School counselors and the social schools, a safe school professional. I need to think. Do the
I believe the
administrator has that, and then the school resource officer.
But not every teacher?
No.
Similar with like behavioral, like if there's infractions, and those aren't always available to the teachers also, consequences.
And I would assume parents have access to that too, right?
Parents don't have access to that.
They don't have access to that?
No.
Interesting, okay.
They can ask for access, but it's not something when they go into Infinite Campus that's just automatically there for them.
Any other discussion, comments? Mr. Clario, thank you so much for all the hard work that you do for this. I don't think our program would be where it is without you, so we do appreciate all the time that you've put in and we would have never gotten to the point where they would have been employees, that's for sure, for benefits. So you were the driving for that, and we appreciate that, and because they're makes such a difference. And when the last time that we had some of them here and hearing some of the stories, I can't imagine our schools without them. So I do appreciate everything that you've done for this district with those.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and I couldn't have done it without the support of Mr. Stokes and Mrs. Kima, Dr. Delphin, Valerie Dockery, all the principals. They're really the true heroes. They're just allowing me to help out. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 10, discussion on proposed changes to CCSD policies 910, district-wide parent engagement, family engagement. First reading for discussion only, Mrs. Dockery. And thank you for your patience. I know this was a little later than we thought it would be, so.
It's okay. Good evening, President Wilkie, members of the board, senior administration, and guests. The Title I of Every Student Succeed Act requires that we have parent engagement, parent involvement policy within our policies and regulations, and that we have that reviewed by parents on a regular basis. So to that end, this policy, I met with parent groups. We have parent involvement facilitators at Title I schools at Boardwalk, Bray, and Empire. I met with parent groups at both schools, and we presented this policy to them. And we asked them for their suggestions in both the policy and the regulation, if they had any changes that they would see from the last time that we did this, which is a few years ago. So with those parent groups, first we looked at the policy, and they did not have any changes to the policy. So the changes that you see here are just some cleanup things that Mr. Pavlakis worked with us on, just changing some verbiage a little bit. So there's really no basic changes to the policy itself that we're presenting tonight. So I don't know if you have any questions on that.
I do have a recommendation. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth paragraph from the top. Let's see, where does this sentence start? I'm going to start by where it says providing information on student progress at least 4 times each year in a uniform format and upon request in alternative formats, and to the extent practicable in language parents and guardians understand. I had a hard time comprehending that, and I think that it's, in my opinion, I think it's a little unclear, and I would just like to make a recommendation on how to rephrase that by saying, instead of saying upon request, saying offer bilingual assistance for families whose children are identified as English language learners. The reason why I'm making that recommendation is because I know that our Spanish speaker parents are eager in getting this type of assistance, but they're embarrassed of asking for help. So if we provide that to them as an option, I think they would jump on the idea of saying, yes, I definitely need help. Or they would have the option of saying, no, I don't need assistance.
So could I possibly email with you later to get that specific verbiage that you would like to see there?
I would appreciate it.
Look at that, but I did have parents look at this who were bilingual, who looked at it in Spanish. I provided them with Spanish copies as well. And they did not have any concerns about it the way it was written, but we can certainly look at that.
Thank you.
And I would agree with Lupe, just because if we're getting in compliance with ESSA, that's the term they're using now is English language learners, so.
Yeah, and I thought we changed that in all of it, but we might have forgotten it there,
Yeah,
so.
so I mean, I think it's the same meaning, but I think it's the appropriate terminology now, and I think it'll take us into the future, and I think that's a good suggestion.
Any other comments on the policy?
The only one I have is, And it's only because I'm on that advisory committee or council. But on the NRS, the 2B is promotion of regular two-way meaningful communication between parents, family, and schools relating to the learning of pupils. And that seems to be the one bullet that's missing in all the ABCs. All the other ones have ones that are directly, like number B is number A in the NRS, but it seems like B is missing. The B from the NRS is missing from here.
I'm not sure I'm following, I'm sorry.
Well, in the NRS, it's specific with the A, which in our, do you have, I have.
The NRS I don't have in front of me,
Okay.
sorry.
That's
I
okay.
don't.
See, I'll show you.
Well, I can get it.
Yeah, that's the
later.
only part is on the B part, because it's under section 2. And then it's 2B, it talks about promotion of regular two-way meaningful communication. And I know that was one of the things that the council was real adamant about when we submitted language for this NRS.
It is, I mean, it's not in the order of that, but the heading above the listing of A's defines it as parent and family engagement means participation in regular two-way
it's right
meaningful
there.
communication between parents, families, and schools involved in student academic learning and other school activities. So it is there. I don't know if we want to follow the exact lettering of the statute, but I think that if it is there as a heading, that oversees everything, and then all of the others would fall underneath that, is the way I read it.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Should we move on to
Okay.
the regulation? Yes,
So we
go
will
ahead.
move on to number 11, discussion of proposed changes to CCSD Regulation 910, district-wide, that's where you heard 910. Parent-family engagement for discussion only. Mrs. Dockery.
So on this, on the regulations, we had quite a bit of parent input and opinion on this part of the process. And we did also do some cleanup with Mr. Pavlakis on some of the verbiage through here as well. But I think the main area where parents had some suggestions for us was if you go to page 4, that's where it really you start to see where they were really using their voice under number B. And this policy, unlike the one for social workers, does outline more specific details regarding parent engagement because there's a lot of parent voice in it about what the kinds of things are that they would like to see. So here under B, for example, like they were fine with A, that part, but under B, they wanted to see more parent enrichment classes. Instead of a specific reference to parent university, they wanted to see more information on college and career readiness. The school performance planning was fine, online access to curriculum, but more parent engagement programs in English and Spanish, that was brought up by our parents. Cultural programs, materials to work with their children at home in reading and math. And I thought this one was really interesting too, and this came up several times. District-wide social media, anti-drug and anti-bullying programs, and other programs as identified. So those were some really very concrete suggestions that parents had, and I thought those were really wonderful suggestions that they brought forward. On the next page, it goes even further with discretionary, under Part 3, at the bottom of page 5, discretionary district-wide parent involvement components. And here, this was a suggestion that came up with parents, informing parents and guardians about the professional development topics on early release days and professional development days, teachers, principals, and it should read that teachers, parents, and other educators receive, which is designed to improve student achievement. There seemed to be a lack of understanding of what was happening on those days when their children were not at school, and how can we communicate to them what are the things that we're doing on those days. So I thought that was a really concrete suggestion that was really helpful. And then as it goes on to the next page, you'll see in italics some of the other ideas that parents had create a district-wide network of parent and guardian ambassadors to enhance parent and family engagement. And this one, they actually didn't want to say encourage, they wanted to say require. Strongly encourage parents and guardians to commit time to volunteering at school, at least 4 times a year. I mean, they really wanted it to be, requirement, but I said we really can't do that. So we're going to say strongly encourage. Yes, we do. Yes, we would. It would be great. Whenever possible, provide communications, whether verbal or written or via social media, in parent, the guardian's language of choice. Establish a district-wide parent and guardian advisory council. That's not new, but it's not something that we have accomplished yet. Offer programs on weekends as well as on weekdays and at various times during the day. Parents felt that they needed more opportunities. I think we talked about that earlier in APTT. And then down at the bottom, just some more, provide multicultural activities and festivals that include many cultures, develop programs that provide information on the elements of a safe and respectful learning environment, provide clear and specific expectations for parents regarding school and student outcomes, adopt accepted practices that encourage participation in co-curricular and extracurricular activities, which we've done, ensure drug-free, bully-free school environments, provide STEM programs for families, provide more district-wide events to showcase students like the Bandorama, Choir Palooza, those kinds of things. So I really thought our parents really had some great specific kinds of things that they like to see in this policy, and their voice really comes through here. So, but I would love to hear what you would like to add or possibly take away.
Laurel?
Oops, sorry, I was just thinking with the more information, because that's one thing parents frequently ask me is, why do we have another early release day? And so that would even be something maybe to let Mr. Davis know when he's posting early release days or no school professional development days, include the topic of what the teachers are learning, because that would help the public understand why.
And we have calendars that we could post. We have that we give to all the schools. We could put those out. Mm-hmm.
And probably just like with the other updating, there's a couple places in here where we say limited English proficiency.
Yeah, and I thought we
just-
had changed that, but maybe it was a different iteration, so we will fix that.
One of the things that Stacy and I were just kind of talking on, I mean, all of this is great, it's how do we enforce it? So what's the plan to actually do this? So we have all these things in here, so I mean, is there an action plan are we just doing it to do it, or are we gonna follow through type deal?
Well, we are required to have policy around it, obviously, and regulations. For the Title I schools, these are things that I will go over with them, and when the new policy is revised, so when they write their parent involvement policies for their Title I schools, that they're addressing these items. I think that is probably something at a district level that we need to talk about as it relates to the strategic plan as well, because these are all things that are part of the strategic plan. So yeah, I think there does need to be a bigger picture beyond just my involvement here with Title I.
And I mean, I just want to say, I think they're great. There's not anything in there I disagree with. I think it's just, how do we do it? What's our next step, and how do we actually do it besides just get it in on paper?
Because both Dawn and I have been at those PLCs where we're the only ones at the table with Dan. So I don't know if there's a way for you to invite those people that you got with to commit, that we could fulfill some of this, to involve them in it. And the other,
And I think maybe getting our parent advisory council going would be a helpful piece too. A district-wide parent involvement advisory council that's been in this policy for a while now, and actually getting that up and running would be helpful. And then having representatives from all the schools be part of that, that actually could drive this work and working with school representatives.
right, and I think it's a good time for it because we're halfway through the strategic plan, and so that would be good to have that momentum to carry us through. And then I guess the only other question I have, it just, the first couple pages just feel like it's just about Title I schools. Is there a way to make it so that it feels like it's the whole district and all the schools, even those that don't get Title I money?
Probably, I mean, we have to have policy specific to Title I, so that's, yeah, kind of one of our.
I had a feeling, but I just wanted to hear it out loud.
But yes, it is kind of all encompassing, yeah.
Well, and I'm just.
And it addresses the NRS too, as you said, so it really is more.
And just thinking, share this with the PTOs and the PTAs, because sometimes the PTA, I know the PTAs, I'm more familiar with them, have guidelines that each activity should satisfy certain goals, but I'm not sure PTOs being such private thing, you know, they're a small, more centralized organization, so I don't know if they have those type of goals, but this would be something great to share with them.
Well, maybe one of the things we could do, Mr. Stokes, is, I'm not going to say Mrs. Kima, but Mrs. Fuson, that we could maybe bring it to parent principals meeting and go over this new policy, as well as the social worker one, maybe at our first meeting of the year, first or second meeting, have this as an agenda item and ask them to take it out to their PTAs and PTOs.
And really, that should be a real focus, because the PTA was a big part of where those 6 tiers came from.
Yes.
That was the basis. They really lobbied hard for that, especially at the council level. So I think that that's something that should be brought to their attention and that they should come to. The Nevada PTA actually has a representative on that council, so.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate your time, Mrs. Dockery.
All right, see you later. Thank you.
Moving on to number 12, discussion and possible action of courses approved on dual credit in the Carson City School District in accordance with NRS 389.160 for possible action. Mrs. Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. Dual credit is earned when students take a community college or university course and not only receive college or university credit, but also high school credit. NRS 389.160 requires that dual credit courses be approved by both the local Board of Trustees and the State Board of Education. Dual credit is awarded for elective and academic credit towards high school graduation. Tonight, I'm presenting to you the new courses which complement our full dual credit course selection for the Carson City School District students. It is not required that the board approve the entire list of courses. What I'm saying is that in your board packet, that first page, the proposed additions, that's what you're approving tonight. The only reason why I have included this time around the entire packet of courses that you've already approved is because we had some new board members and this was my first presentation regarding dual credit. So I wanted you to see the full complement of dual credit courses that are available to our students. And these are courses that students can take as a single course, and it really does support our Jump Start cohort students who are pursuing their AA degrees along with their high school diploma. If approved tonight, I will put a cover letter on top of that proposed page and submit that to the State Department, State Board of Education for approval on their consent agenda.
Any questions? Go ahead, Joe. Joe's gonna make it.
I like the selection of courses, so I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the list of courses from Western Nevada College, University of Nevada, Reno, Truckee Meadows Community College, and Sierra Nevada College as dual credit courses for the Carson City School District.
Second.
Motion by Joe, second by Lupe. Any discussion on this motion? Any public comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. You can take it to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kima.
Letter on. Let's go.
Moving on to 13, discussion and possible action on approval of an application to the Nevada Department of Education for renewal of the Carson City District Distant Ed program for the term of July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021 for possible action. Mrs. Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. Every 3 years, NRS 388 requires that districts submit a renewal application for the state of Nevada's, to the state of Nevada's Office of Adult Learning and Educational Options. A stakeholders group met to review the last application we prepared, made revisions to illustrate what we were currently doing as a district in distance education. Here with me tonight to describe the district's Carson Online program and share changes and progress made is Mr. Jason Zona, principal at Pioneer High School, Jill Council, our distance ed coordinator for the district, and implementation specialist Jeremy Lewis. Also, I need to give a special thanks to Dr. Ricky Medina, who is a part of the committee, who's not here tonight, and Mrs. Tasha Fuson, who's also in the audience. And I'm going to retire to back to my seat so that our team here, and Gavin Ward, Mr. Gavin Ward from the high school is part of this committee as well. But I'm going to retire to my seat and let the team talk to you about our application.
Jason Zona for the record. Thank you for having us here tonight. Just to kind of kick it off, you guys have a lot of information in your packet. It's very dry. Every 3 years, we have to reapply to the state to have our online courses and policies reviewed. So that's what we worked on. For the new people on the board, we wanted to show you some statistics. So if you maybe go forward a slide, or I guess I could do that with my handy dandy click. Okay, that was last year's statistics to show you a frame of reference of how many courses were taken throughout the district. We're not done with this year, so if we go to current status, this is what is going on right now. So that gives you kind of a frame of reference of what's going on in the district. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've done a lot of evolving through the 10 years. And I think in a nutshell for this application process, I really appreciate the panel coming together and talking about it. But we really wanted to look at vetting the courses for next year and doing more of that work. Also, in the application, you're going to find a section on a trial period for students. So for us to look at how they're doing, so they don't get caught in that system and just stay in online if it's not working. I'll go back to those slides, but that shows you in the 10 years what the district, who we've served. And the purple bar is the total number, yellow is the summer, and light blue is per year. So that's a pretty good number. And I've got to give kudos to Mrs. Jill Council and her team. It's phenomenal what she does. So it's really about student supervision and hounding those students every day. So you can see, so that's our current stats right now. Summer's going on right now. It's the biggest I've seen at our school. I'm not sure about the other schools, but you're feeling it.
I'm feeling it.
So, but it really, ultimately, it means graduation. And so I didn't bring that slide. I was limited to a few slides tonight. So, any questions so far on?
Most of the numbers look good. You know, when I look at full-time in Carson Middle School, the percent passing rates are, I know some of these are, maybe students with challenges and whatnot, but what can we read out of those lower percent passing rates?
Yeah, that's, the first one is a full-time, and that is K through 12. So it used to be, if we go back to the other slide, it was the full-time marker at 88% was just Pioneer, Eagle Valley, and Carson Middle. And so that was last year. And so this year, we're not comparing apples to apples. It's K through 12. We also have a lot of disciplinary students using the full-time system. And so that's probably bringing down some of the numbers. We can delve more into it. And what we'd like to do is break that down for you guys and show you per site what's going on. And that's what we do as a team. And we'll be having those sites have representatives to talk about that. Yeah. But you're right. And then elementary, we're talking 2 courses.
Right.
So, yeah, it's like, yeah. And I got to be careful not to bag on the elementary. But it really, and ultimately, as well as kids do in our district online with this program, you can't beat a really great teacher in a classroom face-to-face. So this opens up a lot of possibilities and a lot of extra things and support. But so to see only 2 being used is probably a good thing because the kids are in with teachers. So did you have anything to add?
Jill, council. The other thing I have to say about the elementary is some of those kids are included in the full-time, and the ones that we have that are elementary that are counted in with the full-time are actually doing very, very well. There's a lot of parent involvement, which is huge at that level. You know, and they're the ones that are IEP students, and the parents have pulled them out because they were struggling in the classroom. And so what they're doing is they're spending a little bit of more one-on-one time with their kid doing the online program, and they're finding outside things to do with them too. And so the kids are showing great success. So I'm pleased with the elementary level, you know, that it started. The other 2 elementary level were strictly, that was, we were trying it to see what we could do, see if we could get them engaged. Didn't have much luck, but we were trying. The other thing, you know, that Jason mentioned on the full-time was seeing the rates coming down. And it's one of the things I kind of threw out on the table a couple months ago is I would really like to break that down where we have just a URL dedicated strictly to our students who are in the program because of discipline issues. That brought the number down. And I hate to hurt our other kids who try so hard and are doing so well by showing parents that kind of a rate, you know, is because it is the disciplined kids that brought it down. The other full-time kids that are doing this because they want to, the rate is much higher.
Mr. Zona, I missed when you were explaining that to Trustee Cassiopo, what the difference is in the data. I didn't, having the 2 elementary schools, how did that change the percentage for CMS that much? Is that was the question, right, Joe?
It was, I was just targeting the 3 categories, elementary, CMS, and the full-time. And you guys explained sorry. I was looking at the 3 elementary, Carson Middle, and full-time. And I understand the full-time and the elementary. And I'm guessing you can, I can derive the same information out of CMS, but.
Yeah, we've, like I said, this is really evolving every year. So last year, you know, we had less full-time, I guess, access. And so as it grows, we're finding new patterns. And I think you're going to see elementary, you know, that usage go up as time goes by. Just like in this slide, you can see the usage by the district has gone up year by year. So I would say as elementary expands into it, it does have a place, and you're going to see more of it. But we were really, these 2 comparisons on the very top number of the 2 years are not the same schools. So we have full-time SPHS, Eagle Valley, and CMS at that time. And then this year, it's K through 12. And so the rest of them are site by site. And we're going to keep doing that. And one of the things that got flushed out, as Jill said, for our disciplinary students across the district is we want to put policies in place that will make sure that we're accountable, that they're not staying in a system that's not working. So unless you have a hearing and you're told the student's going to be doing this online work, if they're in the system and it's not working, we need to be looking at that every week and changing the plan if it doesn't work, and not just keep them in online. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's one of the things we're addressing.
Would that plan involve them like coming in with Jill and doing something like on the Pioneer campus, or is that, those are the types of things you're considering as you're looking at? So I'm in trouble, and for the semester I'm on Carson Online, and first week I do 0 amount of work. And then step 2 is you're looking at like face-to-face, or?
Those are already built in. What we have are, every site has somebody working with online students. And so as we put policies in place, we'll make sure that they're part of that training and that they're looking at those students like Jill does. But she can't really do that alone. So that's why we have people at every site, and that's how we're growing.
I know, Susan Kima, for the record, I know that when students aren't doing well, Jill will bring them in to the lab until they start to produce. And sometimes they don't
I
show.
remember that from when I was at Carson Middle School, is why I use that as an example, so.
We have a current example. We have 3 students who can graduate who didn't walk the stage. And so we're bringing them in, and they're in the office right next to Jill, and there's a window there. And we have another graduate as of today, I believe.
Yes, yes.
So they finished. So we brought them in, and it's that, right there in the same room.
And I just ask those questions because I know how challenging it is with some of those kids, and you can't make them get online and do that, or especially if it's a child that has to go to the library to access a computer or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's really challenging to actually get them to follow through. And so that's why I was asking those questions, because we certainly don't want them to fall through the cracks.
And that's where my concern, I don't know if that. Now it's on. That's one of my concern. The majority of the kids that are really struggling are the ones, they're going to that after-school program for that hour and a half, 4 days a week. And it's all secondary schools are doing it, but these students are really struggling. So whether, we have to figure out something that is going to work. I mean, in the meantime, these kids are failing 4, 5, 6 classes because they're not doing anything. So we're just kind of pushing them through because on a discipline issue, they can't be in the classroom, but they're not getting the education they need either. So this is one of the things that we're trying to work, as the group, we were, talking about it, what can we do? How can we address this? How can we make it work for these kids and have them be successful? So.
Maybe more of a philosophical question related to the middle schools. The size of the 2 middle schools, Carson Middle School has a much larger population than Eagle Valley. Is that, you think, some of the reason why we're seeing such a disparity between the two?
This year, Carson Middle didn't really have much last year. It was towards the end of the school year, they all of a sudden, they didn't have the space. So last year, they brought it in, I want to say it was like the last 3 months of school. And so that's why their numbers there look pretty good. This year, they ran it all year. And again, it was the same kind of situation. She had a lot of the disciplined kids in there, one person trying to get all these kids on task and doing what they're doing. So a lot of times, when you run into that kind of an issue, you see the results and you see what happens.
Good evening, Tasha Fuson, for this purpose, Principal Carson High School. I think I can explain that Carson Middle School and the behavior program that they're talking about. We're talking about the options program that we offer at Carson High School in the afternoon after school hours from 2:30 till 4 o'clock. Students we use as an intervention program for students who have been suspended 3 times during the school year on their 4th suspension. We have an intervention plan team that comes together, and one of the options we put on the table for the family is to look at the after-school program. Our intent is to keep them from continuing to be suspended from school. Carson Middle partnered with Carson High School last year and into this year. EVMS did not. They jumped on board late this year. So what you're seeing, those numbers, what they're reflecting is truly students who have been chronic behavior problems within the schools and have been suspended numerous times. And one thing that we probably want to look at as a district is, although this doesn't look like a great pass rate, I know for Carson High School in particular, many of our students who are sitting in this program are actually maybe earning 3 credits out of 7, but when they were in seat, were earning 0. So it's relative. We kind of have to look at how they were performing in the classroom and look at how they're here. It's bringing this data down. But in reality, for some of those students, it's a great success. We also use that program for students who lose credit for academics for attendance reasons. So our frequent flyers are to the attendance office. So those students that we're sending to SARB, et cetera. We use this as an intervention because we don't want those students to sit in a classroom or continue to miss time in a classroom, basically auditing it because they've missed so much time that they're not going to earn credit. And we want to try to help them recoup some credits in the time that we have. So that's why you're seeing this change here. But I think if we, at a later date, actually have the two middle schools, and Carson High School in particular, bring in their data from who's been in those programs, what their success rate looked like prior to being in the program, and then what their pass rates look like in the program. I think you would notice that it's a big accomplishment for many of these kids. We also provide support for the students with social workers and groups. That's why we make them come in person to campus. So they are required to report to school 4 days a week. We provide transportation for the kids, and then we still have that tie to school. Some of the kids just cannot handle being in an environment of 2,300 kids. So, like I said, I know I believe strongly that that's the difference that you're seeing for CMS based on my personal experience working with the administration over there. And again, even with Carson High School, adding to some of those numbers on that full time.
Thank you.
I think just to back up what she's saying, I'm sorry. Just to back up what she's saying, I think as we utilize this as another tool, you're going to find things will go down at first, but we'd rather use it and try it than just keep it exclusive and the numbers super high. And I think we want to use everything we have to offer, and I think we're doing a better job of that. But you will see some of those percentages go up, go down as we expand.
And that's fine. I appreciate that. I don't want anybody to think I'm looking at the two middle schools saying, gee, CMS is doing a terrible job. That's not what I'm saying. It just, you kind of alluded to it that, we could have more disciplinary issues at a site and less people able to address those. And I was just, wondering if population had something to do with it. And probably a little bit, but it sounds like too, kind of where they come on board plays a factor in that too. So I appreciate it. I think I get it.
Jeremy Lewis for the record. I wanted to follow up with what Tasha was saying about attendance. So this year, we have an Infinite Campus team that meets on Fridays, and we realized that the way we were scheduling students for online was creating a problem for tracking. So because they're currently scheduled in like 0 periods or non-instructional periods in the Infinite Campus calendar, if they're not doing their work and being marked absent, they're not showing up on chronic absenteeism reporting. So in order to figure that out, we spent the better part of, I'd say, this year trying to figure out how to reconfigure the calendars in Infinite Campus to address that, working directly with people at Infinite Campus. We threw out our ideas, they brought it back to us, and we figured out a way, we think, that we'll be scheduling students separately, and that's in the application as well. So the schools will actually have multiple calendars now. They'll have an in-seat calendar, and then they'll have distance ed calendars. And that solves the absenteeism tracking problem. It also keeps the instructional minutes the same. So if we added periods to the additional calendars, then we're stretching out the instructional minutes of the school day, which creates a whole nother reporting issue. So part of some of people maybe falling through the cracks is not being able to easily track their attendance. And so that should change next year with the new model.
Jose Delphin for the record. Mr. Lewis, you answered a great point that I was going to ask. So do you think then with all the online programs firing on all cylinders that we will gain or at least stabilize average daily enrollment?
So it's actually not ADA, but it's the chronic absenteeism, the NSPF one. So two things happen. Number one, as a regular student, you're scheduled in classes and they're the length of the class. So Carson High is 90-minute blocks, Pioneer's 80, and so on, 40-something minutes at the middle schools. If you're taking an online course, if you're doing one course at a time, that one course basically needs to be the length of the school day. So it's like a 6-hour course, right? And the way that chronic absenteeism works is it looks at your attendance in minutes. So if I'm a part-time online student and a part-time in-seat student, so maybe I go to Carson High or Pioneer on A days and I do online work on B days, then those instructional minutes now balance out. So to be federally absent and miss 50% of the school day, if I miss my online course, that's going to be like half my day easily, right? But if I miss one course on my A day and not my online course, that should balance out. So I think we'll get accurate reporting for chronic absenteeism per student.
I think that's powerful. Thank you.
Just real quick, I want to thank Jeremy for his work on behind the scenes, because I remember starting this conversation about attendance, and we showed him a list of like 16 different ways kids could have schedules at Pioneer. And I remember him just losing some hair over it. But he really did a lot of work, and we want accurate data. So that's what's been going on this year. So that's it.
Anybody have any questions? We appreciate your guys' time. I know it's late and it's you know, kind of summer hours, so I do appreciate your time in bringing this to our attention and seeing. And Julie, every year, I'm just amazed at what you guys do, your whole department, to bring these graduates to graduation, and I think it's a great thing. And Jeremy, thank you for being here. I know it's out of your contracted whatever, but we appreciate you being here and the hard work that you put in, because, you know, the thing with Infinite Campus, especially working with them, I give you great kudos, because it's a tough thing to get them to understand what we're going through. So I appreciate your time and effort on that, especially. So,
Okay. I move.
yep, we're getting,
Oh, you're not. Okay, I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the Carson City School District Distance Education Program Renewal Application for the term of July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022, and authorize the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services to submit the plan to the Nevada Department of Education per NRS 388.838.
Second.
Just a quick question, now that I made the motion. The date in the motion is different than the date in the agenda for the second one. Is that a problem?
I noticed that as well. Is it for how many years?
It's for 3 years, I believe.
I would, although there's no.
I didn't want to have a motion that isn't what's in the agenda item, so we have an open meeting problem.
Although I don't anticipate there's any objection, I'd recommend that your approval go through 2021 tonight, and maybe on next time's consent agenda, you extend it for the additional year.
So I will amend my motion to be for the term from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2021.
Mike, since you second, do you
I concur.
concur? So is it, looking at the contract, is that what it says is 2022?
Susie Kima for the record. Our application sunsets June 30th. So it goes from, as soon as we submit it, for July 1, 2019, 3 years out from that date. Yeah.
So Mike, does it matter? I mean, as a board, we have agendas that we're gonna discuss and possibly take action on this. The board could decide to do what it wants within, correct?
Slippery slope.
Yeah, I think that if the agenda were worded for a term, a 3-year term, or if it were worded for, as it is, 19 to 21, the board might say, well, we'll approve it for 1 year, but not for 2. I think that's different. But I think just from caution's perspective, I would like to see it come back. And it sounds like if we have it come back at the second meeting of this month, that you'll be okay for Department of Education.
They're already asking, where is it? So I will have to communicate with them because they need time in case there needs to be revisions to give it back to us. So we can just let them know what happened here at the board meeting, and they need to be okay with it.
Okay, thank you.
But you guys won't have to be here. Okay? We appreciate your time now, but I think we can handle that all by ourselves. So,
Mr. Lewis will
yeah.
Now we're gonna make you pay.
So any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you guys again for your time. We really do appreciate it, and I apologize for the lateness of the night. Moving on to number 14, discussion and possible action to approve renewal of contract for legal services with the law firm of Allison McKenzie's Limited for the term of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2021. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As you know, we have enjoyed a longstanding relationship with Allison McKenzie Law Firm. And of course, it's represented here at our meetings and daily with us at the district office as we interact with Mr. Pavlakis and his staff. Not only is the legal counsel that he provides of expert nature, but truly we get good common sense thinking and suggestions, and always timely and always very gracious with us in the things that we ask him to do. I can also let you know that over my time here in the district, Allison McKenzie Law Firm has been very generous with us in terms of the rates that they charge. And there have been long periods of time when there were no rate increases, especially as we went through difficult financial times. So again, I'd like to thank Mr. Pavlakis and his partners for consideration that we've had over the years. With the current lapse, it's not lapsed yet, but our existing contract with Allison McKenzie does sunset here in a short time. And we're looking to extend the period of our association with Allison McKenzie for another 2-year period with an increase in attorney services at the rate of $275 an hour, which is still a bargain in the legal world. And again, knowing that Mr. Pavlakis and his partners have great institutional knowledge with regard to our operations and our organization, I recommend that the trustees approve this new contract in our ongoing relationship with Allison McKenzie Law Firm.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the contract renewal for legal services with the law firm of Allison McKenzie Limited for the term of July 1st, 2019 to June 30, 2021.
Motion by Mike, second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to thank Mike and Allison McKenzie for the great work they do. Not only do they represent the district well, but always available when we have questions. And I would concur with Richard. I mean, attorney fees can typically be much, much higher than what they're charging us. So we appreciate that cooperation as well. But mostly, we really appreciate your expertise. So thank you.
And not only that, but Mike serves students in other ways. When I needed representatives on the Food for Thought board, he asked no questions. He showed up, and he's been an active member of Food for Thought since. So, I mean, I think that you support not just the school district, the students, but this community in a number of ways. So we're lucky to have you.
Yeah, I would reiterate that. We feel very blessed, and it's been a long, 12 years for me with you. So I've enjoyed that. You've always gotten back to me when I've come back. So, and you give me that look when I'm getting out of order. So, and I got to point out at the Board of Supervisors that we might be in violation of the open meeting law that one time when I felt really good, and that's all because of you. So, seeing no other discussion, any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. We're so glad we have you for 3 more years. 2 more years. Can't add either. On to number 15, approval of the consent agenda for possible action.
Second.
Was that Laurel or? Okay. I just heard women's voice down there. Laurel and then Mike. Any discussion on the motion? Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to number 16, informational items. The big one is probably the joint meeting. They'll be here next Thursday with the Board of Supervisors at 6. Hope you'll all be here. Moving on to number 17, requests for future agenda topics. Okay, so anybody have any? So I have one. This is something I wanted to throw out there and see if there was any interest from you guys, but I've been thinking, and it especially hit me when I went to the Empire Gala dinner, and we had English and we had Spanish. And so what I'm proposing to do in one of these summer meetings, when it's not a long meeting, we have a kind of a short agenda, I'd like to take a couple items and do Spanish and do English. And so and Lupe has been kind enough to say that she will translate for us. So I don't know if there's any feeling for that, or if that's okay with you guys, or what your feeling is, but that I'm at the point where now I kind of feel like we need to kind of understand stuff from their world, which is what I got out of the Empire Gala dinner, sitting there and not quite understanding what they were saying, but knowing it was something important. And so I kind of wanted to do that, and hopefully we'll have topics from to Lupe and Letitia, who's our liaison, for topics that are genuinely concerned with those kind of parents, with that parent subsection,
I guess
whatever you want to call it.
my question would be, so we're going to debate board business in Spanish, but is that what the intent is?
Yeah, I guess it would be both. It would be English and Spanish, just a couple items.
So we would still deliberate in English,
English.
but we would have translation for, okay.
Unless you want to speak in Spanish. And
No,
then-
I was just gonna
but-
say, I think that this is a little bit more.
Mike's rates will go up if we do that.
I was gonna say, I think we need to think about this a little bit more, because my Spanish would be no bueno.
And
I would
just
be afraid we
wondering,
would say something wrong myself.
Are there, through because I know our meetings are publicly broadcast, is there translation of our meetings provided?
No, they don't
Oh.
have that capability. I asked that too.
That's too bad that they can't do even, the white.
Caption, closed
Closed
caption.
caption. Yeah, you see it at the bottom of the screen there.
Right.
Does Renee know Spanish?
It'll take some tweaking, but I think we can make it through, and it wouldn't be at a meeting that's gonna go till 10 o'clock, I'll tell you that much. But if there's an appetite for that, if it'd be okay if I could pursue that, I would appreciate it.
I think that's a bad idea.
Okay. All right. Moving on to number 18, adjournment. Let's all go home before the clock strikes 10. We'll see you guys on the 20th. Thank you all.